Hey everybody, this is Rob Gauthier from TrebChanneling.com. A couple days ago on my Facebook account, I made a post about an experience that I had, and I wanted to share that with all of you really quickly. I still really can't put it in words, but I'm going to try to, the best way I can, to articulate and express exactly what I went through during this specific communication, I guess we'll call it. Myself and Kalina, we were both doing some chakra work, some oming. It was right before we were getting ready to lay down for bed, and we had just had tons of intimate conversations and communications, and we were really deep into our heart in that moment. I have been doing conscious channeling with Treb and Aridif lately. I've been connecting to them a lot more in the awakened state. In a conscious state, I've been connecting deeper, more profound information comes through, more profound feelings and resonance. Before I go to the rest of the story, I need to reference something for all of you. I need to make a reference for something that really most people didn't really know about me at this point. In the last year to year and a half, I've started doing Treb channeling full time. Before that, I always had a day job. Before August of last year, I was babysitting every day, about 10 hours a day for 6 children. Plus, after that, my son would come home, and he has cerebral palsy, so there's a lot of things involved. He literally is 100% dependent on me. And in that time, I was doing 100% of the caretaking of him, as well as dealing and watching these 6 children. So I only could do the work for Treb channeling before then up to maybe 3 hours a day. Since then, I've dedicated 100% of myself to the work. And now that Kalina's connected to me and we're working together, it's just been that much more profound. It's been that much more intense. There's been that much more work that's getting done. Now that gives you a reference, we'll go to where I'm going. This last year has been intense for me. I have never consciously channeled before then. I always felt Treb's presence. I always would integrate thoughts with him. I would always receive information from him in an awakened state at very low levels. But this last year has been intense. The last 6 months especially intense. So now that I give you a starting reference, we'll continue. We just got done with our chakra work. We're oming, we're connecting, we're getting ready for bed, and right before we get ready to call it quits, I do the oming like I do when I start connecting to Treb, and I instantly rushed into another state of consciousness, instantly became a part of this new feeling, it was more than a feeling, and like I said, forgive me as I struggle for words here, but the references in itself are just so difficult to explain. Once I connected, this energy was super intense. I never felt anything like that. I could not speak any words. My voice was almost taken from me. I was so into this emotion, I couldn't speak. I think in 10 minutes while I felt this connection, I probably said 4 or 5 words to Kalina. Are you okay? What's going on? She felt this energy in me. And I could see, she just looked in my eyes and she knew that I had made this new connection. And this connection was so deep and profound. She started crying. And when she started crying, I felt her happiness. I felt her excitement. I already had such a profound excitement in my own energy. But when she noticed it and started to become a part of it, that overwhelming sensation became that much more. I could feel her energy melt in to the energy that I had just connected to. Plus, Aridif and Treb were also there in that moment. So it was so intense. I couldn't speak. My eyes are watering. I'm crying. I am very highly emotional. She's holding my hands, looking at me in my eyes, and we're both a part of this energy now. I couldn't speak to her, so I picked up my cell phone and I wrote something. And forgive me for a moment while I pull this up. I'd like to read the exact thing that I typed into my calendar. It was the only thing I could find to type into, but this was, in essence, what my emotional sensations and feelings were in that moment. Now here I see October 20th at 11:59 p.m., 1 minute before midnight on October 20th, and here's what I write. I write 11:59 and I put a semicolon in there instead of a colon for 11:59. They remember now. They get to come back and remember forever. They are us. They remember. And that's all I could write. That's the only thing that made sense to me in that moment. Words became useless. Words broke down at that point. It was so intense that I didn't have any sort of reference for what I was going through. That's the only thing that I could express. And after about 5 minutes of this 10 minutes of sensation, I was able to talk a little bit more. And Kalina tried to communicate. She thought I might have slipped into a trance because we were oming, and I often do when I om. I go in that trance. She thought maybe I had connected to this new entity. She felt that profound. After her emotional state came back down, she tried talking. Can you communicate? Can you speak? Can you verbally communicate something to me? And all I could do is shake my head no. I had no words for her. And it was so intense. Just this huge, huge intenseness. So I write that down to try to communicate with her. We move past that. I'm able to speak slightly, but I ended up telling her basically, I don't have words for this. I can't really explain what happened. She watched me as I'm typing these words, and so she knew what it was. Instantly, we both had assumed Kalina brought the idea forth. Maybe it's the oversoul. Maybe it's a large portion of our oversoul. Maybe it's a collective. Maybe it's the Nihal. Maybe it's another entity who Treb and Aridif have told me is wanting to connect to me. So that, in essence, is what we believe, but I couldn't tell. And whenever she'd say, is it this, is it that, I just shook my head no. Not because I was denying that that was the case, but it just didn't feel like it was something in the energy. I just didn't know what it was, and the feeling was it was just so much greater than anything we could think of. So I continued, and I went to bed, and the next morning I woke up with a huge happy vibration, and I couldn't even connect to Treb or Aridif later that night. I felt their presence, but I could not get communication across. I was still I almost felt on that borderline of being out of it. I was in such a bliss state. I was at the border of being non-reactive, overwhelmed is probably the best word that can describe it. I just couldn't react. I couldn't talk. I couldn't process thoughts in the way that I normally do when I get into my logical based mind, or when my heart center expands and my expansive higher self comes through to communicate more extensively. And in that moment, I gave up on trying to figure out what it was, and I went to sleep. The next morning, there's Treb, there's Aridif, in the same fashion they've been for the last few months, and I asked, what is going on? What was that? And Treb said it's the Nihal. That name might not mean anything to any of you. The Nihal are the seeding race for Treb's race. Treb's race was not evolved in a normal fashion like we would think that most of the entities in the universe tend to evolve naturally. Humans were genetically modified. Our DNA was played with. That's why we expanded and evolved in the way we did. Or at least that's the going theory for some people. Treb has mentioned that the humans as we know them today were modified from a lesser version, a less conscious version. So Treb's race was also done in that form. Nihal was the race that did this. The Nihal were the ones who connected to Treb's race as they were a second density animal entity who is a crossbreed between a Permian era large lizard, which name always escapes me, and Treb, that kills Treb. He never can reference that in my brain because there's no word there for him. So it's a mix between that and the Komodo dragon of today. And that animal was mixed with a Nihal's own DNA. The DNA that the Nihal carry are the same DNA that we carry. Slightly modified, more enhanced, but they carry the human DNA. They are one probability of a future timeline of where humanity can go. In the Type 1 design and the Type 1 energy, they are the future human Type 1 entities. This is a huge thing. It's big. It's important. This is where we get to if we go to Type 1. This is one version of where we get to go to if we're Type 1. Now, this is amazing in itself. These entities produced Treb's race into third density from a second density to third, and then followed them through their evolution. Now, there's been a few references of the Nihal, and some of them are a little different. Some of them were explained in the first book, Benevolent Reptilian Hybrid Humans, by myself, Jefferson Biscardi, which is available for a donate as you wish download on the website. And this energy was huge. There was lots of references in the book. Some of them came from Treb, some of them came from a couple other entities that were connected to in that book. But the baseline is there's a little bit of a different description in each one of those. I've talked about the Nihal to Treb after that book. Now, I want you guys to understand also, this book was done when my channeling was very early. There was still a lot of issues with my own self integrating to my own self, which meant the channeling would come out slightly different in the way that Treb's energy would try to produce this information. So they use a little bit of terms like hybrid, or they use terms like different parallel reality. But what this was a parallel version of ours. I didn't understand a lot of the mechanics I do now, so there was no vocabulary for them to use. The terminology of hybrid comes from the concept that the Nihal were human, and still are. They are a short, highly psychic version of humans that are then moving to another star in the Nihal system. And in the Nihal system, they inhabit a new planet. They integrate themselves to a new collective consciousness. Now, how this works is different for each race, but all races, when they leave their native planet and go to another planet, they are joining a new collective consciousness. If there is no life on that planet, then the collective consciousness tends to shape themselves more so as the seeding race, or the race who has come to inhabit. If it does have life integration, let's say second density life, then it's more of a 50-50 amalgamation. And if there's more life or higher density life on those planets when another race comes and moves there, then it's integrated more so to the mother race, or the race that was there originally. And the collective consciousness morphs, and so does the physical body. The physical body will always follow the energy of its collective, and that's what happened with the Nihal. Gravity, as well as new energy, becomes the short human future psychic race that are the Nihal. I was told a few weeks ago by Treb and Aridif that they needed to talk to me. I talked about this a little bit on the radio show. Very intense. They told me that the Nihal wanted to connect. I did not know how it would feel, and now I do. This new experience was so profound. This they're not in a physical system anymore. They used to come visit Treb's race while they were in 3rd and 4th density, and they've also went back into time where Treb's race was in 5th density to visit them also there. But in the physical form, in the now moment, they don't exist in physical form. They are a collective consciousness. And these entities, as a collective, are going to start connecting to me in a channeled state. I don't know, but I have a huge feeling that this will be a conscious channeled state. When they connected to me, my eyes were open. And that happens with a lot of entities in a deep trance channeled state also. But I was able to perceive everything. I was a part of the conversation. That has never happened to me to this kind of extent before. I have connected to Treb, I've connected to Aridif consciously. Treb has interacted with me consciously once, very, very strongly. It was the first time we connected. But this is going to be, if it was anything like it was that night, I'm going to have to get my energy wrapped around it a little. But in the long run, this will be something huge. And this is what I've been waiting for ever since I knew that these entities were going to connect to me. They are a huge energy. This energy is going to be something that can guide humanity. These entities have the blueprint for what humans need to do to gain themselves into a type 1 galactic collective consciousness, where we will be on the galactic format, no longer in our own planetary consciousness. We will be connecting to all of them. These entities, this Nihal collective, has the map for that, and that is why it's so exciting for me. It's so exciting for me because I'm expanding beyond. Now, the reason I told you at the beginning of this that I used to only do Treb channeling part-time, this is the reason why I told you that. Since I have been able to dedicate myself, my energy, with Kalina's help, with Kalina's expansion, my expansion simultaneously, I have been able to expand within myself. I have had more growth in this last year than I have had in so long. And I've been growing hugely ever since I connected to Treb. I've been expanding in multiples of what I used to, but in this last year it's been the most intense. My channeling has had a new level of clarity than it ever has in the last 6 months. My connection to these entities has had a new clarity than it ever has for the last 6 months. And when I walked away from the day job, when I walked away from parts of my life that did not resonate, that were not of my highest excitement, and moved towards my life that was in my highest excitement, everything's changed. Everything has changed. I always held on to different lifestyle for different reasons. Responsibility said I have to do this in this way. If I don't do this in this way, I could have this outcome or that outcome. Or I am co-creating with other people who won't allow me the freedom to step into where I need to do. And that's gone. All of that is gone. I am limitless at this point. And through my limitlessness, I have been able to expand to this point. And all of you are capable of this. This is the beautiful thing. All of you have the availability to expand in a level and a time frame that is so exponentially much larger than anything previously ever experienced. I have felt it, Kalina's felt it, all of the people who connecting to Treb and the radio show and Facebook, all of them have expanded such huge amounts in this last year. This year has been just amazing. And all of you have that in you. And I'm so proud to be a part of this. I'm so glad I have a format to speak on where others can listen. I am so glad to be a part of all of your lives. And I'm so excited that me and Kalina have been able to produce this work in the fashion that we have in the last couple months and get you guys out as much information as we can. I love you guys with all my heart. I'm sorry that my words definitely fell short of the experience itself. But as I said, words break down at this kind of level. Words have no meaning at this level of expansion, and I am so grateful that all of you are a part of this with me, and I love you guys so much. This is Rob Gauthier, owner of Treb Channeling, owner of the Enlightenment Evolution Hour radio show, and co-owner of the Enlightenment Evolution Network. I love you guys so much, and I will see you guys very soon. Bye.